On the morning of June 6, 1944, as dawn struggled through thick smoke over the coast of Normandy, a 19-year-old American sailor crouched behind a 50-caliber machine gun aboard a U.S. Navy landing craft. Explosions tore into the surf. German artillery ripped through steel hulls. Men screamed for medics as blood mixed with seawater. This sailor was not yet famous, not yet a legend, not yet the name that would one day echo through Yankee Stadium. His name was Lawrence Peter Berra, Yogi Berra. Assigned to a Navy rocket boat during the Allied invasion of France, Berra was about to face enemy fire on one of the most lethal beaches in modern history, Omaha Beach, Normandy, 06:30 hours. Little did he know, what happened next would become legendary, not just in baseball, but in the history of the Second World War. Yogi Berra was born in 1925 in the working-class Italian neighborhood of St. Louis, known as The Hill. His parents were immigrants. His childhood was shaped by factory smoke, sandlot baseball, and the Great Depression. By the early 1940s, Berra was already being noticed for his natural athletic talent. The New York Yankees had signed him as a teenage prospect in 1942. A future Hall of Famer stood on the threshold of professional baseball. Then the war intervened. After the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, the United States mobilized for global war. Millions of young men were called into service. Yogi Berra enlisted in the U.S. Navy in 1943, choosing duty over diamond. He was assigned as a seaman second class and trained as a gunner's mate. By early 1944, Berra found himself attached to a special naval unit, rocket-firing landing craft tasked with delivering devastating fire support during amphibious assaults. These were not rear area assignments. These were frontline boats, thin-skinned vessels, no armor, no protection. Their job was to move close to shore and unleash barrages of rockets against enemy defenses, often under direct fire. This strategic situation in Europe was critical. Operation Overlord, the Allied invasion of Nazi-occupied France, was approaching. Success or failure would determine the course of the war in Western Europe. Omaha Beach, assigned to the U.S. Army's 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions, was expected to be difficult. Intelligence underestimated German strength. The enemy, entrenched along bluffs overlooking the shore, waited with machine guns, mortars, and artillery, and Yogi Berra was heading straight into it. By late May 1944, Berra's rocket boat landing craft tank rocket, often abbreviated LCTR, was positioned off the southern coast of England. The men trained constantly, loading rockets, firing drills, emergency procedures. Each LCT carried over 1,000 5-inch rockets mounted on angled racks. Once fired, the boat had to withdraw quickly. If hit, the entire craft could erupt in flames. On June 5th, the order finally came. The invasion was on. That night, the English Channel churned under rough seas. Berra and his shipmates endured seasickness, anxiety, and silence broken only by the engine's low thrum. The sky was overcast. Rain swept across the decks. By 0500 hours on June 6, the Allied Armada, over 5,000 ships, filled the horizon. Battleships opened fire. Naval guns thundered. The invasion of Normandy had begun. Berra's rocket boat advanced toward Omaha Beach shortly after first light. Smoke hung thick over the water. Visibility was poor. The shoreline erupted with flashes as German batteries returned fire. By 6:30 hours, the first wave of infantry was hitting the beach and being cut down. Machine gun fire sighed through the surf. Landing craft exploded. Men drowned under the weight of their gear. From just 200 yards offshore, Berra watched the carnage unfold. His orders were clear: support the assault, suppress enemy positions. At 0700 hours, the rocket boats surged forward. Berra manned his 50-caliber machine gun as German shells splashed dangerously close. Shrapnel tore through nearby craft. The air was filled with screams, smoke, and the deafening roar of naval fire. Then came the rockets. At close range, Berra's boat unleashed a full salvo. Over 1,000 rockets screamed toward the bluffs in seconds. The shoreline vanished behind fire and smoke, but the Germans were still there. Enemy artillery found its range. A shell struck a nearby landing craft. Another exploded off the starboard bow. Bullets cracked across the deck. Fear gripped the men. There was no cover, no retreat. For 3 brutal hours, Berra's boat operated under constant threat. Reposition, fire, withdraw, repeat. German gunners targeted anything that moved on the water. Little did they know, Omaha Beach was becoming the bloodiest landing of D-Day. By mid-morning, the situation on Omaha Beach was dire. Casualties mounted into the thousands. Entire units were pinned down. Some commanders considered evacuation. At sea, the rocket boats were running dangerously low on ammunition. Smoke obscured targets. Communications broke down. At approximately 1,000 hours, Barra's craft moved in again, dangerously close to shore, less than 150 yards. German machine guns opened up, tracers stitched across the deck. A crewman was wounded, another thrown to the floor by concussion. Barra stayed at his gun. As a gunner's mate, his role was to provide suppressive fire against enemy positions threatening the landing forces. He fired in short, controlled bursts, scanning for muzzle flashes in the smoke. Suddenly, an enemy shell detonated near the stern. The blast rocked the craft. Rockets rattled in their racks. Flames briefly licked across the deck before being beaten out. For a moment, it seemed the boat would be destroyed. Against impossible odds, the crew held position. They fired their remaining rockets. They fired their machine guns. They refused to pull back while American soldiers were still trapped on the beach. Yogi Berra would later speak little of this moment, but records note his exceptionally meritorious service under direct enemy fire. By early afternoon, naval gunfire and sheer infantry determination finally began to break German resistance. Rangers scaled the bluffs. Destroyers moved in close, firing point-blank into enemy strongpoints. The crisis was slowly turning, but at terrible cost. More than 2,400 American casualties would be suffered at Omaha Beach that day. As the tide shifted in favor of the Allies, Barra's rocket boat continued its mission, supporting follow-on landings and evacuating wounded where possible. By late afternoon, German fire slackened. Smoke drifted inland. The beach, once a killing zone, became a lifeline. For his actions during the assault, Yogi Berra was awarded the Bronze Star Medal with Combat V for valor. The citation recognized his courage and effectiveness under enemy fire during the Normandy invasion. Berra returned to service in the Atlantic and later the Pacific. Serving until when the war ended, he returned home, smaller, quieter, changed. The boy from St. Louis who had faced German guns at Omaha Beach now picked up a baseball bat again. What happened next would become legendary. Berra joined the New York Yankees over the next 19 seasons. He would win 10 World Series championships, more than any player in history. He became a 15-time All-Star, an American icon. But beneath the catcher's mask was a combat veteran, a man who had seen war at its most brutal. Yogi Berra rarely spoke about Omaha Beach. Like many veterans, he carried the memories quietly. Yet his legacy stands as a powerful reminder of the generation that put life on hold to face unimaginable danger. From the blood-soaked sands of Normandy to the bright lights of Yankee Stadium, Berra's life bridged two worlds, war and peace. His Bronze Star remains a testament not just to personal bravery, but to the millions who served without expectation of fame or recognition. He once said, "I didn't know how lucky I was until I got home." That humility defined him both as a soldier and as a sports legend. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to WWII Records as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.